Welcome to the Uncinched podcast, where we uncinch what's really going on in the horse world. We are so excited to have you here with us today. If you're new here, I'm Britton. I'm an equine practitioner based in Alberta, Canada.
And I'm Taya, a horse trainer, clinician, and coach, also from Southern Alberta, and we are your proud co-hosts of the Uncinched podcast. Before we begin this episode, we would like to acknowledge one of our sponsors, Grab Mane Photography. If you know the feel of reins in your hands and the quiet bond between horse and rider, then you know some moments can't be put into words. That's where Grab Mane Photography comes in. Specializing in equine and Western lifestyle photography, Grab Mane captures the spirit of the horse, the heart of the rider, and the beauty of life lived close to the land. From barnyard candids to golden hour gallops, every frame tells a story, one of connection and authenticity.
If you haven't been listening up until now, we started off our season with a guest in the saddle, which was with Mesa Pate, who is one of the founders for Art of the Cowgirl. And then we also went to a very informational episode talking about guts, all about the digestive system of a horse. So we're going to change things up.
Both of those episodes are some of our favorites to date. But today's episode, we, your co-hosts, are going to share a few stories about horses who we have personally had that changed our lives, perspective, and overall philosophy when it comes to working with horses in general. This is part of our Glory segment where we celebrate the good parts of horses and the horse community, the types of moments that remind us why we love this life.
Every horse person has at least one horse that's shaped them. I think that's pretty obvious. The ones that quietly influence who we become, how we ride, how we think, and sometimes even the entire direction of our lives. Some teach us confidence, some teach us resilience, and some just show up at exactly the moment we need them. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay. I'm the lucky person who gets to go first. I get to we're going to talk about two horses each today.
Yeah.
Just to keep it simple, because there's a lot of horses that have impacted, I know, my life, and I'm sure yours too. The first horse I want to talk about is the horse who kind of kickstarted absolutely everything in my life and in my career. And it's like kind of not a messed up story, but kind of a
weird one.
Yeah, weird. And like, definitely if you're listening and you haven't experienced something like this, I'm like happy for you.
You shouldn't.
Because I had to go through a lot of turmoil with this horse at like
very
the ripe
young
age of 10, 11.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just say his name. So this horse was my first horse ever. His name, I called him Desperado, and I think that gave me the bad juju. But he was I loved this horse. I loved him to bits. We, as a beginner family does, we went to an auction, and I got to pick out my favorite horse. I never rode the horse at the auction, which rookie mistake number one. But he was this black grade quarter horse. He was pretty cute.
Young.
Regular old quarter horsey dude. Definitely was probably sedated looking back. He was really chill at the auction, and the salesman, I mean, we don't know for sure, but our conspiracy theory was this guy who was selling it was like the meat man. So he was basically selling horses or picking up horses that were going for slaughter.
Yeah.
And then like cleaning them up and then selling them for a little bit more at the auction.
Yeah, that happens.
So he looked really put together, and the guy was like, oh yeah, my 11-year-old daughter rides this
my
horse.
God.
He's so good. And us foolishly as naive beginners took his word for it. He loaded in the trailer fine, took him home, and then we let him settle for a little while. And anyways, long story short, my first ride on him, nothing bad happened, but I had no steering. I got on him, and he'd obviously had been rode, but I couldn't steer him anywhere. And I mean, I'm 11. I don't know what the hell's going on, right? And I just remember being like to my mom and dad, you know, like, yeah, he doesn't steer. And then be like, oh, you know, you're just like, he's getting used to you. And I was like, yeah, no, he doesn't steer. Anyways, long story short, this horse had some big holes in his training. And he also ended up having quite significant physical issues. Yeah. I obviously fell in love with him because I was 11. And the physical issues ended up turning into behavioral issues. So I was 10 years old, very, very green rider, very little knowledge of life, let alone riding. So like it slowly started to get worse and worse and worse. And I love this horse, like on the ground. I ended up spending a lot of time with this horse on the ground because every time I'd ride him, it was safer. He ended up pulling out all of the tricks. He would buck me off. He would rear. That was his thing, was like he would rear me off. And I don't know how many times I'd like fallen back on my head, like slid off and landed on my feet. And so I definitely like it was a rough era of my life, and
I'm surprised you stayed with horses.
Same. But I like, the thing is I really love this horse, and on the ground we had a pretty cool connection, and I ended up teaching him a lot of tricks because I was like, what the hell else am I gonna do? But
11-year-old right there.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this horse, was because like I loved him, and I you know, still hold a really special place in my heart for him. But long story short, he had all these behavioral issues, and like we were beginners. I was like, oh, he's just bad, or oh, he's just had a, you know,
rough day.
You know, we talked like, oh, the people before him abused him, and I don't know if that was necessarily true either, but we ended up finding out that the seller lied about his age. So they told us that he was like 10.
No.
And he ended up being 3.
Just quite the difference.
Yeah, and
just a little.
So I learned about reading horses' age by looking at their teeth, thanks to Desperado. And when I buy a horse, I'm like
always
up in there.
Yeah.
So that was like life lesson number 1 was like, don't take people's word for things. Like, check yourself, even if they seem trustworthy,
just in case.
Just look for yourself, because you never know. And then the other thing was, this horse started escalating his behavioral issues. So like it started off, he wasn't steering, and like, okay, we could deal with that. I got him steering and it was okay. And then he started popping up and rearing and bucking, and he ended up at one point, my mom also had a horse, and we traded for a while, and my mom, also a beginner, was training my supposed 3-year-old horse for me. And this horse like just was pulling out all of these tricks, and we were just like trying to manage it as best as we could. So like the rearing, like I ended up riding with like an egg in my pocket because someone told me if you crack an egg on the head.
Oh my god.
And it kind of worked. Don't recommend doing that.
You were 11 just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, literally. And I was like,
my
anything to ride this horse,
I will do.
I will do it. And yeah, I ended up like, I never got like seriously hurt, thank goodness. Like I was pretty nimble at that time. Thank God.
Now maybe not.
Yeah, now definitely would have cracked open. But yeah, it was like crazy. Anyways, going down a rabbit hole. My mom and we traded horses for a little while because like mom and dad started to realize like, okay,
this is dangerous.
Yeah, my kid's gonna die. And I was also like, I'm not selling him. Like, this is my bestie.
I refuse.
We're in love. And like, he did love me a lot, and we got along, but like, he was dangerous. He was very, very dangerous. So my mom was like, okay, well, I'll train him for like a summer. I don't remember what the timeline was, but my mom was riding him, and he would like just randomly like start to like act up, and like you would have to circle him just to like, and he would like really fight you. And hindsight, right away, if I looked at it now, he had some pain issues.
Again, 11.
Yeah, 11 years old, green family, don't know what the hell we're doing. We're just literally riding this rickety poor horse, and he's trying to tell us that he's having all of these problems and pain. And I mean, we are doing our best and our knowledge at the time, and that's where I have so much compassion for people who don't know anything. And that's where I'm like, I judge people who judge beginners. Sorry if you judge beginners. Like,
we all start somewhere. Yes. And it's a poor form,
and like you do the best with the knowledge that you have, and that's definitely what we did. And like, yeah, now looking back at it, I'm like, what an idiot, what a bunch of idiots. But we didn't know what the hell we were doing, and we were doing the best with the knowledge that we had,
which is why we started this podcast.
Yeah. So anyways, my mom rode him for a little while, and he ended up turning his head over at her and biting her in the calf. Like, and it was like in a great, yeah.
Oh my God.
He pulled out all the tricks. Like,
in the calf. Oh my goodness.
She still has nerve damage. And this was how old am I now?
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, 15 years ago. Yeah. Over 15 years ago.
Wow. Oh, yeah. That sounds painful.
Yeah. So he would do stuff like that. And we would like, we ended up figuring out handy ways to like not let a horse buck, turn him in a small circle, get his head right. Okay. Then he stopped trying to buck us off. And then the rearing thing, same thing, bent him in a circle, or I tried cracked eggs or a water bottle. I remember using a water bottle too. And like, I'm just like, oh my God. It was
you bad. Were just doing whatever you could to make it so it wasn't as dangerous, even though it was probably even more dangerous because you were asking him to escalate behavior.
Yeah, and this went on for like, I'd say a year and a half.
Oh, jeez, that's hard.
Yeah, and like it was like, I remember my parents sitting me down and being like, "Yo, like,
you gonna die."
Yeah, where they like got to a point where like, yeah, they were like, it's just getting worse and worse, and like, you're a kid, how can we expect you to do this? So they were like, something has to change here. So we ended up sending him for training, and he was at the trainers for, I don't know, it was a long time ago, 2-3 months. And it wasn't until the trainer was like, yeah, there's something physically wrong with this horse. We got x-rays done, ultrasounds, you name it. And this horse was absolutely riddled with arthritis. Like, his body was like a 25-year-old horse, and he was 4 at the time. Something
very traumatic must have happened to that horse to cause all of that.
Yeah. Like, no one knows for sure, obviously, but what the vet and the trainer at the time had said was they were pretty sure that like he was either started as a racehorse really young, or he was started as like a cutter or something, and like he had a lot of conformational defaults, like,
which didn't help his case.
Yeah, and so I think that mixed with getting rode really hard and maybe some like genetic things going on, he wasn't papered or anything that I was aware of. So all of the behavior stuff was linked to the physical stuff, and he ended up having to be retired at like 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
And like, I was devastated, but at least it was like, okay, we had some answers, and it was like, this is kind of gone too far on, like, even if there was a bit of a chance of like rehabbing him and getting him back into work, like, the damage is already done. But having that horse changed the trajectory of my life, because I ended up getting really interested, and I had to learn like how to ride unruly horses and deal with like pretty severe behavioral issues.
So I would not be caught dead.
I spent a lot of my youth riding people's horses that were like giving them issues, and everything after Desperado was like,
Easy.
walk in the park, right? Like, oh, this horse is just like wanting to take off on me. Well, it's better than him trying to rear me onto my head or buck me off or bite my mom's poor leg. So like it ended up being a happy story, a happy ending for him. Like he's still alive, believe it or not. And he's retired. A really nice family took him, and he's just literally a pasture ornament and
Enjoying life.
So it ended up being a very happy ending for him, which I'm like still super, super grateful for.
I have a question for you about that. So with him, do you think that it taught you to be more patient and more like interested in groundwork?
Yeah. And I feel like I'm always been like pretty patient, but it just made me have to like more so think outside of the box. So I spent like a lot of time like watching YouTube videos and learning how to teach tricks, and I was just like really piqued my interest in like the groundwork relationship side of things with my horse versus just like getting on and going, because there was a few sporadic periods of times where my mom and dad were like, yeah, you can't ride him, but I was like, this is my horse, I have to do something with him.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing, was, yeah, okay, I had to find other ways of being with my horse that still was like positive and stimulating for both of us, and that like I felt like we were at least getting something accomplished. And I think at the time, like I held so much shame over the fact that I couldn't ride my horse.
I get that. I think everyone gets that.
Yeah, and like looking back at it now, like I was 11 or 10. Like, you know, there was like so much responsibility that I put on myself, or
that was unnecessary.
Yeah, but I think like that has just kind of how I've been, is like I've just really cared about all of my horses, and if I'm not doing right by them or if they aren't
you feel
progressive,
bad.
and I'm just like, okay, like that responsibility is held on me. And so that's why I'm really grateful that my family, even though we didn't know what the hell we were doing, like once we figured out what something was wrong, you know, we went down all of the correct avenues. We got the vet to look at this horse many times, and we went to the trainer and we gave everything a really honest go. We didn't just like discard him after, you know, he started acting up. Like, we still saw that he was a good horse and
tried to do right by him.
Yeah. So we still did that, and I still think that's something that like I still heavily carry in how I handle horses, is like, yeah, even if they are doing some sketchy things and they are having some behavioral issues, like give them at least a chance and like do a deeper dive into what's going on, because very rarely do they ever really want to hurt you. And I think I kind of knew that he didn't, like he really liked me, and
it was coming out of a place of pain, not out of a place of hatred.
Yeah. And his training journey, even though it was short-lived, that like I ended up working with some pretty great trainers, like Josh Nickel, who's the creator of the relational horsemanship style. He used to come and do a clinic at my barn, and because I was having all of these issues, he didn't really typically work with kids at the time, but the lady who was teaching me ended up giving me a spot in the clinic, because she was like, yeah, you need some help. You need some help. And meeting him like completely changed the trajectory of my life. And his apprentice was the one who ended up training Desperado. But yeah, then meeting him, and even though Desperado didn't end up being a permanent fixture in my life, and I was really devastated about that, I kept working with Josh, and he really helped set up my career. And I don't think I would have ever
met him.
Yeah, I would have never met him or really taken that stuff seriously at that age if I didn't have this horse and I didn't care as much about like
his life,
him, and yeah. So
oh, well, that's a lovely story. Mine's different. Mine is not like that. So I'm going to talk about one of the horses that was like the beginning horse, I would say, for me. She was the horse that I rode for the like second time ever. Her name was Bree, and she was a permanent fixture in my extended family's life. Oh my goodness, I don't want to cry. I'm gonna be a mess. Anyways, She was born on the farm, and she passed away on the farm just over 30 years of age a couple of years ago. But she was my grandfather's main kind of mount. He was a cattle farmer, cow-calf, and so he roped, branded, all those type of things with her. And she was also really good with kids, which was funny because when he used to tell me about her, he said she was like the most difficult horse to break and totally a menace and a mess. Up until like 6 or 7 years old, where he was like, oh my God, I can't trust this horse at all. And then all of a sudden she just decided she wanted to work with everybody. And we called her grandma sometimes because she just loved kids and loved people. And she was one of those really special horses that, you know, if an adult's on her who knows what they're doing, she's ready to rev, she's going. And if it's a kid, she like is very slow and calm and making sure you're okay. So I had that type of first horse. My horse was always trying to make sure I was okay. Yeah, so she's the one who kind of taught me how to ride. She's the one who taught me confidence on a horse. And she's the one who taught me to fall in love with horses. It was really reliable. There's a photo of me somewhere where I'm on her with my grandfather, and he has a rope in one hand and I'm just like sitting on his lap. I think I was like 4 or something like that. And we're just going through the field, and there's other photos of me with her up until I was, you know, probably 16. She started to age though, as they do. And for me, she really solidified my love of horses. She was the one that taught me, you know, this is something that matters to me. I've always loved animals. My first word was kitty. It was at a squirrel, but, you know, I tried. And I really found a special bond with horses through Brie. And, you know, all of the horses on the farm at that time, especially this other one named April, but we won't go into that. We're going to stay with who our horses are. And Brie taught me, you know, what reining was. And she also taught me about pain too, because as Brie aged, she started getting this big bump on her front knee. And now that I'm trying to remember it, I can't remember which side. I think it was the right side. It ended up becoming both sides over time, but it started off, I believe, in the right. And it just started getting progressively bigger and bigger, and she'd struggle kind of bending that knee. And that's why she ultimately retired as an adult horse and was only used for, you know, smaller kids or lighter people. And then ultimately at the very end was just retired for the sake of being retired, which was honestly quite hard on her. She had so much heart. She had so much she wanted to give you. And so she wanted to be taken out. She wanted to go do her job. And, you know, she was an old lady and she was sore and she couldn't quite do it. And so she found that difficult. And I found that difficult because, you know, I didn't want her to be sad. And she didn't maybe necessarily understand why we stopped using her as a main mount or anything like that. And there was one time fence broke, and so my grandfather and I noticed that there was like some yearling cows that got out into somebody else's field. And if anybody knows much about cows, when they're really, really tiny, it's super easy to get them back in because they want to go back to mom. When they're older, it's usually pretty easy because they're like used to this. Yearlings are like teenagers that are rebellious, and they're like, screw you, Gramps, get out of here. And so we had to round up these cows, these yearlings, in a wheat field. And I didn't have a ton of horses at the time, so I ended up having to ride Brie. And Brie at that point still had quite a big lump of arthritis on her knee. And we felt so bad because we didn't really want to use her. But she was revving to go. She was ready. She went, we got there, and she was like, yeah, let's go for it. But that also really taught me empathy, because she gave everything she could in that moment to round those cows up. It didn't matter that she was limping, she was lame, and I was feeling devastated that I was putting her in this position, that she was forced to do this. And yet she was so happy. And I had to really learn, like, she really wanted to work for us. She gave everything she could. And if she is telling us no ever, that's something that matters. Some horses will just tell you no about everything. She was not one of them. She was that horse that would give everything she had unless she had nothing left. And obviously, after we rounded up the cows, we took very good care of her. We iced, we set everything up, we put liniment, we did all of those, aftercare. But that was truly the last time I rode her, because I was like, no, I'm not doing this ever again. But she had a hard time getting into trailers. And so when we had to take her somewhere, we ended up building kind of like a ramp for her, which we had never done, because we didn't want to make it hard, or she just like four hooved into the trailer. But she just had so much heart, and she had so much to give, and so much love. And she taught me how to really pay attention to my horse and see where they're coming from, and look at those eyes. Like, those eyes are so important to tell you what's going on. I love the saying, the eyes are the window to the soul, because I think it's so true with horses. They really communicate so much if you take the time to pay attention. She also helped me learn to go slower. I think as kids, we want to just go. We want to set up. We want to ride and go ride hard. And I learned a little bit more about, I have to walk. I have to kind of warm her up, and then we can go do things, because otherwise it caused pain or it caused issues. And so it taught me, I think, to be more mindful of my horse's body, and not just see them as a vehicle or a vessel for me, and instead as a partnership with me. Because as a kid, I think you forget that a lot. And especially if you've grown up with horses your whole life, or they've been in your life in some way, you forget that there's a being that is underneath you in many ways. You see them sometimes as, equipment to be used for your ranch or your riding lessons or your programming, whatever you want to call it. And something that I like to say is, if somebody ever tells me that, because I've had people who will push back on my type of work, which is fine, that's your opinion, but they'll be like, well, my horse is just equipment for the farm, so I don't need to do all these unnecessary things. And I said, I understand where you're coming from. I believe horses are a tool to use as well when it comes to your farming, but do you maintain your tractor? Do you oil it? Do you make sure the wheels are working properly? Do you make sure that you're servicing it and fixing it when things need to be done? Same goes for your horse. If you want to call it equipment, then take care of it like equipment would be taken care of. And I think that's something that I was really learning at that time about Brie. That she needed to be cared for in different ways than other horses, because she had different needs. And I learned that horses have different needs. And I think that's something that I really learned from her. And I also learned about compassion through her, where she just truly took care of everybody, and she loved everybody, and she wanted the best for everyone. And you could throw anyone on there and you didn't have to worry, which is so funny when I hear the stories of when she was young, which obviously I didn't know her at that time. I know her pretty much quite late in her life, I would say. And my grandfather passed away in like 2019, and it was very difficult time for me especially, but my family in general, because he was a very beloved person. And Brie was already, I would say, probably doing a little poorly at that point, but she stayed. And I think she did it, and this is just an opinion, but I think she waited until she knew everyone kind of was okay before she was willing to pass away. And I think that's really beautiful. And when it was her time, she knew it. And she passed away on the farm. She lived her entire life there. She was loved there by everybody. And I think that's very special to be able to have a horse in one care for 32, I think, years.
Pretty good.
I think that's a long life to live where you're loved forever by so many people, and you've changed so many people's lives, because she changed pretty much everyone who came to that farm's life. So there you go. I didn't cry. I came close, but we made it. We made it.
Okay, my second horse is a little bit different. This is actually one that surprised me, and when we were kind of doing the makings of this episode, like, there's so many obvious ones. Like, I could talk about personal horses, but I thought it might be interesting to talk about a training horse that I had a couple years ago. So this is a training horse that came to me, and it came from someone who, she's awesome lady. She sent me a lot of horses over the years, and we get along really well. But she had this horse named Aramis, and I think she renamed him Denny at one point too. I don't know where Denny came from, but he was a Morgan, beautiful buckskin Morgan, exactly my type.
Yes,
he was like, I joke and say he's like Jason Momoa. Like, he was really sexy. He was a really sexy horse.
Jason Momoa, OSAK in horse form.
Yeah, he's really looking horse. But he was older, and he was sent to me to start. He was older, and he was used as a breeding stallion until he was about, I think, 7 or 8. So, if you don't know anything about starting horses, usually horses who get started later in life are kind of set in their ways, and like later is considered like 7, 6 and up, honestly.
Yep.
Even 5 and up for some people. So, he spent most of his life being a stallion and being a bachelor, and he was very like bravado, dramatic, like intense, and he was like absolutely sickening. Like, he was stunning. And before he came to me, I remember her sending me this video of him, and he was gelded about, I think, 4 or 6, between like 4 and 6 months before he came to me. So he wasn't still a stallion, but he still thought he was a stallion.
He had the bravado of
it. So she sent me a video of him, like, she knew she was going to send him to me for the spring. And she sent me a video of him in the winter, just like absolutely going ape shit, like bucking and running around like a crazy man. And he was gorgeous because of how athletic he was. Like, he was lean, he was so strong, and then very animated, and everything he did really, really, really intensely.
Was he like Spirit?
Like, more dramatic than Spirit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he was a lot. He was a lot. So anyways, the reason I picked him was I already, before he even came, was like, I had this preconceived notion that I was like, this is going to be a lot of horse. And like, I didn't, like, I knew that I was fine, but I was like, not scared to get on him, but I was a little bit like, I need to like really take my time with this, because, yeah, this horse could like really rock my shit, because he was athletic as hell. So I honestly I got him, and he was like pretty lovely, like very intense, very spatial, but like not in a malicious way at all. So
in a stallion way.
Yeah, and he was just a stallion, or he thought he was a stallion. Yeah. So he came, I think I had him for like 2 or 3 months, and his job was just to be like a trail horse. So it wasn't like super high expectation, but I wanted to make sure that he went home like pretty solid and without any like, you know, if he was going to blow up, I wanted him to do it with me, and I wanted to help him through it. So I honestly spent the first like couple weeks tiptoeing because I was like, this horse is a lot. And he never ever did anything that like gave me signs that he wanted to hurt me or anything. He was just intense. And so I ended up doing a lot of liberty with him, because at the beginning I was like, okay, if I'm going to get on him, I'm going to take a bit of lung out of him, and I'm going to make him move his feet a bit so that by the time I get on him, he's wanting to rest and chill out. But that ended up making him really fit. I ended up like just peeling everything off and putting him at liberty. Spent like the first couple weeks like not tiptoeing around him, but being very, very cautious. And then I was like, okay, like we need to get on. We need to do all of the things. I ended up doing a lot of liberty with him. And he was like one of the first horses who was like really sucked in on the liberty, and he loved it. Like I'll do a little bit of liberty kind of at the beginning just to like check in and see how things are and whatever. But he was like, he'd latch onto you, he'd canter small circles around you, and like it was just really natural for him. Like he had a really natural draw, like a great forward. He just had like a lot of life and energy, and when he wanted to connect with you, it was like really dramatic and obvious. So anyways, long story short, I had a lot of like, I wasn't fearful, but I was just like
tension.
Yeah, not even tension. It was just like I had this thing in my head of like, oh, he's this big, strong horse and he's going to do something bad. And like as a result of that, I think I carried like that energy with me for a little while. And it wasn't until that I did some liberty stuff with him and I was like, okay, this horse like actually really wants to connect with me. I'm not showing him any trust from my end of the spectrum. And if I want him to be trustworthy towards me, like he was the horse that really showed me that you have to be willing to be vulnerable in order for them to be vulnerable. And so it was liberty that really was like a huge theme of working with him. And I ended up getting to the point where I think I maybe put like 3 rides on him, and then I ended up like sitting on him and riding him around bareback.
Wow.
And like it just happened, you know?
It worked
like,
for that horse.
It just happened. And he was the first horse who like really, like I felt like he really dramatically wanted to teach me and to show me that like if you want horses to listen to you and to do all of these things, like it's not about being the boss or being in control. It's actually the opposite, and showing them that you believe in them and trust in them enough that you basically kind of show them that you're willing to trust them. And in every horse, they kind of have a little bit of a different expression of what that looks like. And for him, it was like, he was very dramatic, and it was liberty. There was nothing I could get on him at liberty. He'd line up to the block really nicely. He'd canter circles around me. And like, he didn't have any formal training or anything. Like he was just doing
naturally,
like to do it. And he definitely had the makings of being an absolute weapon and rocking my shit. But I think I was lucky enough to kind of catch on at the beginning, and like just that lesson of like, if you want a horse to be trustworthy towards you, you need to be trustworthy towards them. And that was like a big, like, holy crap moment.
Light bulb.
Yeah. And just like completely changed how I approached every other horse. And now every other horse that I have who's maybe a little bit more fearful or is a little bit more resistant towards training, because they're like that. They come in, you're a stranger. They're like, who the hell are you trying to tell me to do things? And rightfully so. I think so much of training is like, oh, we want them to be a good citizen. Well, are you a good citizen? Like
and we all have bad days, we all have big feelings, we all have different situations that bubble up, and I'm a really big believer, if you're gonna talk the talk and say that you're all this and all that, like you better be practicing it in real life, and you better walk the walk. And like I feel like I have a unfortunate big
lens or big magnifying glasses that I can like see through people's bullshit really quickly. And it makes it hard to have like friends and see things, but like I'm just being,
you just have to find
honest.
your community,
and also like lead by example. You're never going to like, you can tell people till you're blue in the face things, and it's same thing with a horse. You can make them do things, but are they going to want to willingly do it after because you made them do it? Or are they going to willingly do it after because you showed them how good that they can feel by being an example, by being an example of it? That was like the biggest thing with that horse. Yeah. So anyways, long story short, this horse just actually showed me that if you want to be good with horses, that you have to really live, and like if you want them to be vulnerable, you have to be vulnerable. And if you want them to respect you, you need to be someone who's respectful. And by going about things with force and with, I guess, intensity in a like negative, overpowering way, that, I mean, with a regular, chill, calm horse who's bred to be calm and fine, that's fine. But when you end up with a horse who's spent a lot of his life doing it on his terms, you can't necessarily walk into the space and just expect them to yield and to bow down to you. You need to be leading by example. And that's just... Aramis was just really powerful and really showed me the power of doing less, and also like putting yourself in a vulnerable space to kind of be an example. And after I kind of figured that out, he just snowballed into becoming this like super cool, awesome, reliable horse. And he ended up passing away really early, which was really sad.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, not my story to share, but it was a surprise. After he left me, he ended up becoming like a wicked mountain horse.
Awesome.
He went down into Arizona and stuff, and he was like super sure-footed, super athletic, and he just ended up really loving his new job. And I think it was because his real first interaction with people wasn't about like taking away the things about him that actually made him really cool. And that was like his intensity. That was the amount of life and energy that he had. That was like how dramatic he was. And instead of like trying to take that away from him, I think I saw who he really was. And the parts that he was lacking was the experience of riding with, or being handled by people and having someone on his back. And it just tried to make it positive and also show him that like this isn't about people taking away who you are. It's just kind of finding you a new avenue and letting you still be yourself, but in a more like in a safe manner. But it wouldn't have been as safe if I was unsafe, if that makes sense. Like I had to, like I got on
show
him
the evolution.
Yeah, like not necessarily evolution. It was more of like just show him that I'm not there to control him. I want to do these things with him, but I'm not forcing him or making him. And I had to like take everything off in like such a dramatic expression. Like I did everything at Liberty with him every single session at the beginning to show him that I'm committed to showing you how much I'm willing to let down my guard in order for you to let down your guard. And I think that was something really powerful to learn from a horse in like a really interesting phase of my life. So that's where Aramis was very special towards me. And I'm really sad that he's passed away because he was a really cool horse. And he's definitely changed the way I work with horses probably forever.
You know, I think that's a really beautiful story, and I really do appreciate that you used a client horse for it, because I think it is important to know that the horses that change us don't always have to be owned by us as well. I guess that transitions well into my story, because my horse loves Liberty, loves it. which was something that really helped me with him. So I'm going to talk about Rumor, the horse that I currently have. He's a beautiful little blue roan with a shy but big personality at the same time. He's kind of a funny guy. He's very goofy, very goofy. He's very fun. I love him to death. And he is truly, I would say, my heart horse. And he stands apart for that reason. But there's other reasons why I chose him today. And that's because he kind of helped me define and better my career path, I think would be the best way to put it. Because at the time of my life when I first got Rumor, I was kind of in a stagnant point because it was during COVID and I wasn't really sure what I wanted. And I had just kind of left university and I didn't know where I wanted to go. I tried a different job. I didn't like it at all. And I was in a bit of a rut, I think is the best way to put it. And I got him and I realized there was some quirks about him that I didn't maybe know how to figure out at the time. And I started looking into other programming for myself for work. And then I found, the massage and chiro and all that. And I jumped into it and I had to practice on someone. So I did it on Rumor and I learned where maybe something was sore or something didn't move right. He was quite young at the time, so I wasn't riding him at all. And it taught me too that just because you're not riding the horse or using the horses in that way doesn't mean that they don't get sore. They don't have something that might be moving in a funny way because, they've done something wrong or they got stuck in a fence or whatever the scenario may be. So he kind of pushed me towards a bit more of a different career path. And obviously I'm still sticking to it. I love this career. As you heard earlier, I'm an equine practitioner. And one of the biggest things that I am so privileged to do is that I get to go around, North America to do presentations and teach people about body language, about muscles and bone structures and horses. And I'm so privileged to get to do that with my best friend. Rumor comes with me most of the time unless there's like circumstances that don't allow it. But he goes with me everywhere. And because he's so beautiful, everybody wants to come see the presentation. It's not about me, it's about him. And so I get to have him help influence other people. And I chose him because he doesn't just influence my life. He influences so many people, whether you're a horse person or not. Because we've done presentations at places like Calgary Stampede, and not everyone there is a horse person. Actually, most of the people there have no experience with horses or very little experience. And he gets to teach them about that and hopefully open up their curiosity to the point that either they want to get involved in the horse community, get involved with Stampede, get involved with understanding animals better, or inspiring a little girl to go for a riding lesson. All of these little intricate moments that don't seem that big in the grand scheme of things, but can be almost like a butterfly effect, if you know what that is, where that flap of the wings can influence the wind change in a different part of the world. And I think that Rumor is very much that horse, both for me, but for other people, because he's there to give them the opportunity to learn. And he's there to give them the opportunity to invest in their own horse if they choose to from these presentations in the way that I'm presenting. And I think that's really special. And he's really changed my perspective on horses in general. I would say I'd have a bit more of a crude's the wrong word, but I would say I didn't have the most refined horsemanship as I grew up. everything was through the farm. Everything. I never had a formal trainer. I never really took lessons. I didn't learn in a quote unquote traditional sense of lesson horses. I learned through the farm and what you worked and what my grandfather did and what my uncles did. And some of it was right. And some of the things were not right. And I didn't maybe understand why they weren't right or anything like that at the time. And Rumor was the first kind of like true horse that 110% was mine. To nobody uses him other than me. Nobody gets to have an opinion on him other than me. And he really elevated my horsemanship because I learned where maybe I didn't know things and where I was lacking and when to seek help when I was lacking those skills. And so he taught me that sometimes to be a better horse person, you have to let somebody else help you. And he also taught me that horses really differ between person to person and energy to energy, because he is a very sensitive boy that way. He's very good, don't get me wrong. He's open to new experiences and he will try always. He's never been the horse that's on purpose going to hurt you. However, he could be very skittish, still sometimes is that way, spooky, more so when you ride, not so much on the ground. But originally on the ground, he would steamroll you to get away. And it wasn't because he wanted to hurt you. He wanted out of that situation. And so I had to really learn how to regulate myself a little bit better, because if I got nervous at all, he was immediately on edge. And I found he was way more responsive to me than others, probably because I was around him more and, you know, I was a safe space for him. And so the moment that I started to spiral at all, he was done for in that session. And so I had to really learn how to be a better horse person, how to better maintain my composure and my emotions, my feelings, and understand that when I don't trust him, if I don't give him the benefit to think about the situation, that I'm actually doing more harm than good for him. And that's just the type of horse he is. He is one of the horses that sometimes you have to do it 3 times and then he's like, okay, I get it. But if you punish him for not knowing the first time, he gets bigger and scarier and scared. He just becomes scared. And so I had to learn who was allowed in his kind of sphere too, because I had farriers that maybe didn't respect that boundary for him, where he was nervous around new people at the beginning. He's a very different horse from when I first got him, to be clear. But at the very beginning, he was nervous about somebody touching his feet. And I guess I should preface this with saying that I am the only one who had ever worked with him at this point in time. He was almost 2.5, I think. And no, he hadn't been halter broke. So like he was very nervy. He had lived in a field his whole life and really wasn't touched at all at that time. And I don't think he ever had his feet done, to be honest. And so we had a farrier that immediately got big with him, and he got bigger and he got scarier and he started to rear up and get more and more aggressive. And so I had to really find somebody that fit for him, that would allow him to ask questions. I think that's the biggest thing. He would ask the question like, oh, is this safe? Is this okay? And if you went, just do it, then he was like, no, this is so unsafe. I'm scared. I'm nervous. I don't want to do this. And he was one of those horses that you couldn't just force to do something, because it would just become a total fight. And some of the stuff I learned when I was younger is just force it, just get it done. And you can't do that with that horse. You have to have that partnership. You have to have that trust. You have to have that conversation with him where he can ask you the question. You can say, no, I still want you to do this, but you're okay. And he will give it to you. He will do it for you. He has the big heart to do it. He just has to give you the question. I think that's the biggest thing I learned, is let him question. A question doesn't mean disobedience. It doesn't mean he won't do it. It just means it's a question. He wants to understand before he gets himself involved in whatever is happening. And so I think he really taught me that, which helped me in my career too, because I have horses that, are in pain or are having a difficult time for some reason that we don't know quite yet. And sometimes they ask big questions, and being able to work through that problem without being immediately frustrated by their behavior or by their reaction or by how they choose to ask that question has allowed me to be able to work with more horses in a positive manner, even when the outcome that they are interpreting may feel negative. And what I mean by that is that, sometimes I'm causing a bit of pain with those horses because I'm doing it to make it feel better. And so a horse, I can't exactly go up to, a horse and say, hey, just so you know, this is going to hurt, but I promise it's going to feel better later. So I have to be able to create a partnership with them and a bit of a trust contract, saying that like, hey, trust me to help you. And I won't ever push past the boundary you're willing to give in this moment, because if I do, then all of a sudden I lose everything that we've done up until that point. So I have to really be mindful of where their head's at, where they're feeling things by their body language, by how they're reacting to things, so that we can move forward. Because not every horse is going to trust me on the first session. Not every horse is going to let me touch that painful spot on the first session. Sometimes it can be up until the sixth one. I have a wildie I work with, and it probably took us about 5 to 6 sessions before she would let me do an adjustment. But when she did, she was ready. And if I had forced that and pushed that, I think we would have had problems and I would have been put in danger. And Rumor really taught me a lot about being patient and letting the horse ask the question and then trying again. I think that's the biggest takeaways that I will say. So, some horses really shape the life we build around horses and how we interact with other horses. And I think you learn that in this episode. And so that's why I would choose Rumor.
That's awesome. Horses have this quiet way of leaving an imprint on us. They do this in ways such as igniting our love for them, humbling us, growing us, and influencing the way we perceive the world. And there is always that one that really leaves their mark, even long after they're gone, like Brie. Those lessons they taught us and the memories tied to them tend to stay incredibly clear most of our lives.
Yeah, it's interesting too, is how often these horses influence the bigger decisions we make in life, as you can gather from our own stories. Sometimes it's subtle. Maybe a horse teaches you patience, that resilience, or the importance of listening instead of forcing things. Other times, a horse might inspire someone to pursue a career in the industry like us. Without even realizing at the time, these horses can end up guiding the direction of our journeys in ways we only recognize way later.
And that's also why gratitude for those horses matters so much. Many of them carried us through stages of life where we didn't know much yet, where there was uncertainty, or when we needed a friend more than anything else. Those horses, well, they show up for us in the way we needed at the time, and in a lot of ways they help the horse people who we are today. Taking a moment to acknowledge that impact is really important in our opinions.
And it's an interesting thing to think about. If those horses hadn't existed in our lives, where would we be? Would we be following the same path? Would we have made the same choices or fallen in love with horses in quite the same way? Looking back, those horses start to represent something much bigger. They're not just memories, but represent milestones in who we become and the journey that brought us to where we are today.
So if you're listening right now, chances are there's probably a horse that immediately comes to mind when you think about the ones that change us. Maybe it's the horse that first made you fall in love with riding, the one that taught you your biggest lessons, or the one that simply showed up in your life at exactly the right time. It might be the horse that challenged you and forced you to grow, or the horse that patiently carried you through your biggest learning years. Every horse person has had at least one of these horses who have left a lasting mark.
And with that being said, we'd really love for you to take a moment to think about that horse and truly take a moment with them. That one that truly changed something for you. And if you feel like sharing any of this with us, that horse that changed you in a different way, that horse that shaped you into the person you are and is a special part of your life, we would love to hear about them and why they connected you in the way that they did. So share with us the horse that changed you. You can send it through our email or our socials. We just would love to hear about it.
Well, if you couldn't tell, we both love to talk about horses, and we could talk about them for eternity without any break either. But unfortunately, this episode does have to come to an end eventually.
Plus, we have so many more stories to share throughout this season and the seasons to come. So speaking of stories to share, we're bringing back Uncinched Confessions this season. So we need your help. If you don't know what Uncinched Confessions are, it's a segment that we do here on the Uncinched podcast where we ask the horse world, that includes you who's listening, a question, anonymously, of course. And then we read them and have a conversation about it.
Last season, we did 2 of these episodes. One of them was pet peeves, and the other one was on perception changes. So please feel free to go back and check them out. We really love this segment because it gives you, the listeners, a chance to have your voice be heard, but it also just gives such a wide range of perspective. We love to say here that the horse world is multifaceted, and Uncinched Confessions definitely confirms that statement.
So, my dear listeners, our next upcoming Confessions episode is called Unpopular Horse Opinions That You Will Defend With Your Whole Chest. That's our prompt. These can be small, silly, surface level things, or they can be much deeper rooted. Whatever strikes your fancy.
The horse community is diverse, with diverse ideas and practices, and we want the podcast to reflect this while giving context as to what's behind it. We want to know your thoughts, hear your voice, and understand. Remember, this segment is completely anonymous, so you can say whatever the hell you want, and no one will ever know who you are. So again, if you want to have your voice be heard, our upcoming Confessions episode is on unpopular horse opinions that you will defend with your whole chest.
If you have a story you'd like to share, you can click on the form in our episode description or head into our link tree.
All right, before we officially conclude this episode, we want to give another shout out to our sponsor and official photographer, GrabMain Photography. If you are looking for a kick-ass, fun photographer in the Calgary area, Brooke at GrabMain Photography is your gal. We love and appreciate her to death.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to the Uncinched podcast. We appreciate all of your support, truly. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more, please engage with the show by telling your friends, sharing it with others, subscribing, and writing us a review on whatever podcast platform you are using today. Hopefully a 5-star review and only positive feedback. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Reviews really help grow the podcast and reach more people. So it just helps us get out there a little bit more. Every bit of your support is really appreciated and helps us continue doing what we love. And that's blab for your entertainment.
And if you want to see more Uncinched content behind the scenes and in between episodes, please feel free to follow us on social media. We're on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, which are all linked in the show notes. If you are also interested in our services, feel free to link in with us through our link tree.
Yeah, so until next time on the Uncinched podcast, where we will be covering horses, drugs, and lies. Oh my, the state of buying and selling horses in 2026. In this episode, we will be covering topics such as how to protect yourself as a buyer as well as a seller, how the horse market has changed, and some common pitfalls. So the new episodes are released bi-weekly on Thursdays, so don't forget to tune in. Until next time, bye!